gave me a cold choice: find a job or find another place to live. Grief still hung in the air when I agreed, desperate, to care for a paralyzed billionaire. On my first night in that mansion, something happened that made me freeze. The funeral flowers on Dante's grave were barely fading when Harlow walked into my kitchen, designer purse snapping against the counter. "Mom, we need to talk." At 42, she had her father's strong jaw, but none of his warmth. "This arrangement isn't working. Dad left everything to me, and I can't keep supporting you." I was still in my black dress, still aching from 45 years of goodbye. Coffee slipped from my trembling hands, shattering across the tile like my life coming apart. "It's only been 3 weeks," I whispered. "I know," she said, unmoved. "Life goes on. I have my own family to think about." I offered my small pension, $800 a month. Harlow's laugh held no humor. "That won't even cover utilities." But I found a solution. She showed me a posting for a live-in caregiver. "You were a nurse before, Dad." "It's perfect." I hadn't worked in medicine for decades. "It's more companionship than nursing," she insisted. "You have an interview tomorrow. If you don't get it, you'll need another place to stay." The next morning I stood before an estate straight out of a film, my heart pounding as I rang the bell. Patricia, the house manager, ushered me across marble floors and glittering chandeliers. "Mr. Hawthorne is paralyzed from the waist down," she explained. 17 caregivers in 2 years. He can be difficult. Inside a grand library, a man with silver hair turned his wheelchair toward me. His eyes, startling blue, held a flicker I couldn't name. "Mrs. Thompson," he said, voice deep and steady, "please sit." And that was the moment my life began to change. His eyes never left my face, as if he were searching for a memory only he could see. "Yes, sir," I answered, my voice steadier than I felt. "Many years ago, before I married. And your husband, he passed recently." It wasn't a question. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you." I glanced at my hand, still wearing Dante's ring. When I looked up, Terrence Hawthorne's gaze was even more intense. "Have we met before, Mrs. Thompson? There's something familiar about you." A chill moved through me. I forced a polite smile. "I don't believe so, Mr. Hawthorne." I'm sure I would remember, but even as I said it, I wasn't certain. The shape of his mouth, the tilt of his head, something tugged at a memory I couldn't place. "Perhaps not," he murmured, unconvinced. "Tell me, why do you want this position?" The truth, that I was desperate after my daughter forced me out, stayed locked inside. "I've always believed in caring for people," I said instead. Something in his expression softened. "And you're not afraid of difficult situations?" Images of Harlow's cold eyes and the shattered coffee cup flashed through my mind. "No, sir, I'm not afraid." Terrence nodded. "Patricia, would you give us a moment?" When the door closed, he wheeled closer. "I won't pretend to be easy to work for," he said. "I'm exacting, and I value privacy. But you'll be treated with respect, and paid well." The figure he named made my breath catch. "I need someone I can trust. Someone who won't gossip or treat me like an invalid. Can you be that person?" His blue eyes held mine. That strange flutter of recognition returned. "Yes, Mr. Hawthorne, I can." "Good." He extended his hand. The moment our fingers touched, a spark leapt between us, too sharp to dismiss as static. "Welcome to my home, Hilda." The way he said my name, soft, almost reverent, sent a shiver through me. I pulled back, reminding myself I was a grandmother, a widow. I had no business feeling anything at all. Yet as Patricia showed me to my quarters, the thought wouldn't leave me. Terrence Hawthorne looked at me as though he were seeing a ghost. My first week in the Hawthorne mansion felt like living inside a beautiful cage. The room assigned to me was larger than the apartment Dante and I once shared, complete with a sitting area and a bathroom that gleamed like a luxury hotel. But each morning I woke under the weight of a new reality. At 68, I was a live-in servant. Terrence proved as particular as Patricia warned. Coffee at precisely 7:15. Newspapers in a strict order. Medication to the minute. One slip and his sharp tongue found me. Yet between commands I'd catch him watching me with that same searching intensity, as though trying to solve a puzzle that had haunted him for years. "Hilda," he said one Thursday while I arranged his breakfast tray. "That's an unusual name." "Family name?" "My grandmother's," I replied, pausing over the grapefruit. "She was German." "German," he repeated thoughtfully. "And where did you grow up?" "Here and there." My voice stayed calm, but my hands trembled. It wasn't a lie. We had moved often, but not for work. My father's gambling debts had kept us running. That afternoon, while Terrence napped, I finally unpacked the 3 boxes Harlow allowed me to keep. Clothes, a few books, my jewelry box, and at the bottom, wrapped in worn tissue, my old photo albums. The first held a lifetime with Dante, our wedding, baby Harlow, vacations, decades of careful respectability. I set it aside and reached for the older one, the faded blue leather cracked at the corners. Inside the faded blue album lay the life I'd lived before Dante. Before marriage, motherhood, and decades of careful respectability. The first pages were harmless enough. High school graduation, nursing school friends, my parents smiling with youthful hope. Then, halfway through, my breath caught. Page 12. I was 20, wearing a yellow sundress I'd sewn myself, hair long and tied with a ribbon. I was laughing, head tilted back in pure joy. And beside me, arm around my waist, dark hair glinting in the sun, stood a young man with unmistakable blue eyes. Terry Hawthorne. My hands shook so hard the album nearly slipped to the floor. Terry, who loved jazz and chocolate ice cream, who said that yellow dress was his favorite. Terry, who had promised to marry me the moment he made his fortune. Terry, who kissed me goodbye on a train platform 48 years ago and never came back. The face was older now, silver-haired and commanding, but those aristocratic cheekbones and searching eyes were the same as the man in the wheelchair downstairs. What had turned warm, reckless Terry into the controlled, guarded Terrence Hawthorne? I turned page after page. It on Terry and me sharing cotton candy at the county fair. Terry teaching me to dance in my tiny apartment while the neighbor banged on the ceiling. Terry and me at the lake believing love could conquer anything. The last photo stopped me cold, the morning he left. His suitcase at his feet, my tears soaking his hands as he cupped my face. I'm going to build an empire, Hilda, he'd whispered. I'll be back within 2 years. Will you wait for me? I had promised I would, but 2 years became 3, then 4. His letter slowed, then stopped. By the time a rumor reached me that he'd made it big in real estate, I had already met Dante. Steady, kind Dante, who loved without conditions. I married him 6 months before Terry's final letter arrived. That letter, still tucked behind the last photo, trembled in my hands. My dearest Hilda, I've done it. Everything I promised and more. I'm coming home next month so we can finally begin our life together. I bought a house. Our house. I can't wait to carry you across the threshold as my wife. Forever yours, Terry. The date? 3 weeks after my wedding to Dante. Tears blurred the page. All these years I'd told myself Terry had simply forgotten, but he had come back. I was the one who had moved on. A soft knock jolted me. I slid the album and letter beneath the pillow and wiped my eyes. Come in. Patricia stepped inside, concern etched on her face. Mrs. Thompson, Mr. Hawthorne is asking for you. He seems unsettled. My heart thudded as I followed her down the grand staircase. Had he remembered? Was that why he'd watched me so intently? In the study, Terrence sat motionless, staring out at the manicured gardens. When he heard my footsteps, he turned, and for the first time I saw something raw, almost vulnerable in his expression. Hilda, he said quietly, I need to ask you something, and I need the truth. I clasped my hands to hide their tremor. Of course, Mr. Hawthorne. Have you ever been to Millbrook? Small town, couple of hours north of here. My breath caught. Millbrook. The place where I'd grown up. The place where I'd fallen in love. I'm not sure, I lied, but my voice betrayed me. Terrence studied my face, those piercing blue eyes searching. There was a diner there, Murphy's, I think, and a little lake where young people gathered on Sundays. Color drained from my face. Murphy's Diner, the place where Terry once bought me cherry cola and told jokes until I laughed so hard my ribs ached. The lake where he first kissed me beneath a sky full of stars. Mr. Hawthorne, you must be confusing me with someone else, I said, though his eyes told me he wasn't confused at all. The mask of cool control slipped, and for a heartbeat I saw the young man I had loved with every part of my heart. Perhaps, he murmured, gaze never leaving mine. Perhaps I am. As I turned to go, his whisper nearly buckled my knees. Yellow dress. You always looked beautiful in yellow. I didn't sleep a minute that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Terry smile, heard his promises, and downstairs the man he had become was likely awake too, chasing the same memories. By morning I knew I couldn't keep up the pretense. Better to face the truth than let it eat us both alive. I found him in the conservatory, sunlight catching the silver in his hair so that, for a moment, the dreamer and the powerful man overlapped. "Good morning, Mr. Hawthorne," I said, placing his coffee exactly where he liked it. "Hilda?" He looked up, exhaustion in his blue eyes. "Did you sleep well?" "No," I answered honestly. "Did you?" A faint smile. "No. I kept thinking about yellow dresses and cherry cola at Murphy's." I exhaled. The cherry cola was too sweet. "You always told me to get vanilla, but I wouldn't listen." He closed his eyes. When they opened, they were bright with unshed tears. "Hilda Marie Brennan, you wore your grandmother's locket and had a scar on your left knee from falling off your bike when you were 8. My hand rose to the spot where the locket used to rest. "You gave me a silver promise ring," I whispered. "I still have it." His voice was barely audible. "I've carried it for 48 years. We stared across the space between us. Not just a few feet, but decades of separate lives and choices. "Why didn't you tell me who you were?" he asked. I sank into a chair, suddenly feeling every one of my 68 years, because I was afraid. Because I'm not the girl you remember, and you're not the boy I remember either. Terrence nodded. "When I came back and discovered you'd married Dante, I wanted to hate you. I told myself you never really loved me. That's not true." The words burst out. "I waited, Terry. I waited until your letter stopped. I thought you'd forgotten me." "I never stopped writing," he said quietly. "But my business partners intercepted the letters. They convinced me you'd moved on. By the time I learned the truth, you were already married. The cruelty of it hit like a physical blow. I hired a private investigator," he continued. "I had to know you were happy. I knew when Harlow was born, when you bought the house on Maple Street, when Dante was promoted, even when he became ill. I never interfered. I just needed to know you were safe." He reached into his jacket and drew out a small velvet box. Inside lay the silver ring I had returned the day before my wedding. "You kept it," I whispered. "I kept everything. Every letter, every photograph. I never married Hilda. I told myself it was because of business, but the truth was simpler. No one else was you." The weight of his words settled between us like a stone in still water. 48 years of loneliness and quiet watching. "Terry, My voice faltered. "How do you apologize for a lifetime apart neither of you chose?" "I don't blame you," he said quickly. "You made the right choice. Dante was a good man who loved you the way you deserved. Have you truly made peace with that?" I asked softly. "Because the man I've worked for these past weeks doesn't seem at peace with anything." His jaw tightened. "The accident changed me. 5 years ago, I still dreamed of a second chance. Then I woke up paralyzed and thought, what could I offer you now? A broken man in a chair? Stop!" I stood abruptly, heat rising in my chest. "Do you think I care more about your legs than your heart? Do you think I'd turn away from someone I love because they need help?" He looked startled. "Hilda," he said, voice breaking, "I loved you." "And I loved you, Terry," I answered, every memory of yellow dresses and starlit lakes flooding back. "Not your fortune, not your grand plans," I said through tears. "I loved the boy who brought me wildflowers because roses cost too much. The boy who held me when I cried about my father's drinking. The boy whose dreams were so fierce I couldn't help believing in them too. 48 years of locked-away feelings spilled out like water through a broken dam. If that boy is still somewhere inside you," I whispered, "everything else is just details." Terrence reached for my hand, his fingers thinner now, marked by time, yet the touch sent the same electricity through me. "He's still here," he said softly, buried under bitterness and disappointment, but still here. The question is, what do we do now? I studied the elegant conservatory, then his face. "Are you happy, Terry? Truly happy?" He paused. "I was successful, respected. I had more money than I could ever spend. But happy?" He shook his head. "No, I haven't been happy since the day I left you on that train platform." "Then maybe," I said carefully, "it's time to stop punishing ourselves for choices we made as different people. Maybe it's time to see what we can build now." He brought my hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "Would you be willing to try, not as my nurse, but as whatever we can be to each other? I thought of Harlow, of the cold house where I was no longer welcome, of the lonely apartment I'd planned to rent. Then I looked at the man who had loved me faithfully, even from a distance, for nearly 5 decades. Yes, I whispered, I'd like to try. Hope bloomed where only grief had been. 3 weeks later, Terry asked me to move into the master wing, not as an employee, but as his companion. The word felt strange and beautiful on my tongue. You don't have to decide now, he said over dinner. But Hilda, this isn't about convenience. It's the life I should have lived all along. I set down my fork. There's something you need to know about my daughter. His brow furrowed. Go on. She has no idea who you really are. When she found this job, she just saw a wealthy man who needed care and a mother she wanted out of her house. When she learns I'm more than hired help, she'll assume I'm after your money. Are you? He asked quietly. I stared at him, stunned. How can you even ask that? Because 48 years is a long time, he said. People change. And wealth changes how people see me. I stood, hurt flashing hot. If that's what you think of me, maybe this was a mistake. Please, sit. His voice was gentle but firm. I had to ask. I've been burned before by people who claim love but wanted only my bank account. I needed to hear you say it. Arms crossed, I stayed standing. Say what? That I don't want your money? That I'm here because of you? I shouldn't have to say it. You should know. He reached for my hand. I hesitated. You're right, he said quietly. I should know. And deep down, I do. But when you live with this much wealth, you start to question everyone's motives, even those you care about most. The anger eased from my chest. Is that really how you've lived? Never trusting anyone? Pretty much, he admitted, eyes downcast. It's lonely, but it felt safer. I studied the lines on his face, the way his mouth turned down at the corners. Success without love had left him suspicious and alone. For the record, I said softly, I don't want your money. I want you to leave every penny to charity if that brings you peace, I said. I have my Social Security and a small hospital pension. It isn't much, but I've lived on less. Relief softened Terry's features. I'm sorry I had to ask. Don't apologize, I replied. Just don't ask again. I took a bite of Patricia's perfectly cooked salmon and turned to the real storm ahead. When Harlow finds out about us, she'll cause trouble. You need to be ready. Terry's eyes hardened. What kind of trouble? She'll demand to know your intentions. She might threaten legal action, claim I'm taking advantage of you. She might even try to have me removed from the house. Let her try. His voice carried the steel that built his empire. This is my home, Hilda. No one decides who can stay here except me. I wished I shared his confidence. My daughter could be ruthless when threatened, and this would threaten her. My phone rang. Harlow's name lit the screen. My stomach clenched. Speak of the devil, I murmured, showing Terry the display. Answer, he said. Let's get it over with. Hello, Harlow. Mom. Her voice was tight with anger. I just had an interesting chat with Mrs. Patterson. She saw you at the grocery store with a man in a wheelchair, acting very familiar. Of course, a small town never keeps secrets. Terry and I had gone shopping yesterday, laughing as he insisted on buying ingredients for the chocolate cake I'd mentioned. His name is Terrence Hawthorne, I said evenly. He's the man I work for. Work for or work on? Harlow's voice dripped with accusation. Mrs. Patterson said you looked awfully cozy. Terry motioned for the phone, but I shook my head. My bad. Harlow, I'm 68. I can manage my own behavior. Are you sleeping with him? The bluntness hit like a slap. That's none of your business. It is if you're embarrassing our family name. Dad's barely gone, and you're chasing the first rich man who looks your way. White-hot anger flared. Your father's been gone 2 months, and I grieved him properly. But I'm not dead, Harlow. I'm allowed companionship. Companionship? Her laugh was ice. Is that what we call gold digging now? Terry's face went pale with fury. He motioned again, more firmly. This time I handed him the phone. Miss Thompson, his voice was arctic. This is Terrence Hawthorne. Let's be clear. Your mother is not a gold digger. If anyone is pursuing, it's me. Silence. Then Harlow's tone shifted, suddenly cautious. Mr. Hawthorne, I didn't realize... Clearly. And understand this. Your mother is an independent woman. She makes her own choices. The fact that you can't see, that says more about you than about her. A long pause. When Harlow spoke again, her voice was cool, calculating. I appreciate your friendship with my mother, but I need to be sure she's not being taken advantage of. The only person who's taken advantage of your mother, Terry said quietly, is you. Another silence, then Harlow's voice cold as winter. I'd like to meet you tomorrow at 2 o'clock to discuss this properly. Terry glanced at me. I nodded. Better to face her than let her plot in private. Tomorrow at 2, he said. Harlow hung up without a goodbye. He handed the phone back, jaw tight. Well, he said, that went about as expected. Exhaustion washed over me. She'll try to turn you against me, say I manipulated you, that I planned this all along. Let her try. Terry reached across the table and took my hand. Hilda, he said, voice steady, there's something you need to understand. I didn't survive 48 years in business by being easy to sway, Terry said, his grip warm and steady. No one tells me who I can care about. Your daughter doesn't frighten me. The only thing that scares me is losing you again. I carried those words into a restless night. Tomorrow would decide everything. At exactly 2 o'clock the next afternoon, Harlow arrived in a sleek black suit, every movement calculated. From the window, I watched her smooth her skirt and square her shoulders like a soldier heading into battle. Terry had insisted we meet in his study, neutral ground with the gravitas of a boardroom. If she wants a negotiation, he'd said, we'll give her one. Patricia ushered her in. Harlow's eyes swept over the mahogany desk, the original artwork, the quiet wealth of the room. I could almost see the dollar signs reflected in her gaze. Mr. Hawthorne, she said smoothly, extending a hand. Thank you for meeting with me. Miss Thompson, Terry replied, voice neutral. Please sit. She crossed her legs and folded her hands, every inch the polished real estate professional, though I caught the faint tremor in her fingers. I'm here only out of concern for my mother, she began, voice coated in false warmth. She's been through so much. I worry she may be making choices based on emotion rather than logic. And which choices concern you? Terry asked mildly. This living arrangement, Harlow said, glancing at me. It's unusual for a caregiver to move into an employer's personal quarters. It raises questions about boundaries, about appearances. What kind of questions? Terry's tone stayed calm but edged with steel. That a recent widow might confuse gratitude with other feelings, she said. That people will talk. And when this ends, will she be left with nothing again? I flushed with anger, but Terry held my gaze and nodded for her to continue. She's always been impressionable, Harlow pressed. She sees the best in people, sometimes to her detriment. And what, Terry asked, do you think would be best for your mother? Harlow brightened, thinking she'd found her opening. She should come home. Back to her family, where she can grieve properly and plan her future. By home, Terry said quietly. You mean the house you inherited from your father? The house you asked her to leave? Color rose in her cheeks. That was a misunderstanding. I was emotional, grieving. Of course she's always welcome. For how long? Terry's voice cut like a blade. Until you decide she's a burden again? Until you need space for your own family? Harlow's professional mask slipped. Mr. Hawthorne, you don't understand the complexity of family relationships. Oh, I understand perfectly, Terry said, each word deliberate. I understand you forced your mother out 3 weeks after she buried her husband of 45 years. You gave her an ultimatum, work or live on the street, and now you're here because you've realized she may have found something better than what you offered. Harlow's face flushed crimson. That's not. I was protecting her, teaching her to be independent by making her homeless. Terry's voice was soft, but it landed like a gavel. The room fell silent. For the first time, my daughter had no quick reply. She wasn't homeless, Harlow blurted, searching for footing. She had options. She could have found an apartment. Terry's voice stayed calm but carried quiet power. Your mother receives $800 a month in Social Security. Do you know the average rent here, Miss Thompson? Harlow's mouth opened, then shut. $1,200, Terry continued, for a single bedroom. That's before food, utilities, medicine, basic survival. Where exactly was she supposed to live? Which part of town would you choose for your 68-year-old mother to scrape by alone? I watched with a mix of satisfaction and sorrow. Someone was finally holding my daughter accountable, but it had to be a stranger. My mother, she's always been difficult, Harlow stammered. High maintenance. She expects everyone to take care of her. I couldn't stay silent. High maintenance? I worked 2 jobs to put you through college. I nursed your father through 5 years of cancer without complaint. I babysit your children every weekend for free. I've never asked for anything but a place to grieve. You were smothering me. Harlow's polished mask cracked. Always hovering. Always making me feel guilty for having my own life. So you threw me out, I said quietly. I gave you a chance to stand on your own 2 feet. The room went silent. Terry regarded her with an icy disgust that made her shrink back. Miss Thompson, he said at last, I think we're done. Wait. Harlow's voice turned desperate. You don't understand what you're getting into. My mother, she has expectations. Marriage, security, legal protection. She's not just looking for companionship. And if she is? Terry asked, his tone steady. What if I want to give her exactly that? Harlow went still. What are you saying? I'm saying your mother and I are adults who can decide for ourselves, he replied. Whether this remains companionship or becomes something deeper is none of your concern. Something deeper? Her voice was barely a whisper. Terry opened a drawer and set a small velvet box on the desk, the same box with the silver ring from our youth. Your mother and I share a history that began before your father, before you. We loved each other once. Time and circumstance kept us apart, but they never erased what we felt. Now we have a chance to see if that love can endure. Harlow stared at the box as if it might bite. You're talking about marriage. I'm talking about the life we should have lived all along, Terry said simply. Her eyes snapped to me, blazing. This is why you took the job, isn't it? You knew. You planned this. No. My voice was firm. I thought Terry was gone, married, maybe living across the world. I had no idea he was here until I walked into this house. You call him Terry, she sneered. That's my name, he said quietly. Terrence is for business. Terry is for the people I love. Harlow shot to her feet, chair scraping the floor. This is insane. You think you can erase nearly 50 years? You can't. We're not erasing anything, I said. We're building something new from what's left. What about Dad? About your marriage, your family? Your father was a good man, and I loved him, I said softly. Terry was my first love. Some things never truly end. Panic flickered in her eyes. He's using you. He's lonely and disabled, and you're convenient. When he's done playing house, you'll be out on the street. That's enough, Terry's voice cracked like a whip. You will not speak about your mother that way in my home. My home? Harlow's laugh was sharp. Yes, let's talk about your house, your money, your power. That's what this is really about. Without a word, Terry opened another drawer and set a thick legal document on the desk. Since you're so concerned about money, he said evenly, you should know I've already updated my will. Everything goes to charity. The Children's Hospital, the Homeless Shelter, the Animal Rescue Foundation. Your mother will inherit nothing. Harlow went pale. You, what? I told him to do it, I said quietly. I never wanted his money. I want him. Something in my daughter's face collapsed, like a building losing its supports. For a heartbeat, she looked like the little girl who once crawled into my bed during thunderstorms, small and frightened. Then the mask returned colder than ever. Fine, Harlow said, her voice sharp as glass. Throw your life away on a fantasy from 50 years ago, but don't come crying to me when it all falls apart. She paused at the door, hand on the handle. And don't expect me to be there to pick up the pieces. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. For a long moment, Terry and I sat in silence, listening to the distant sound of her car pulling away. Are you all right? He asked at last. I tested the question like probing a sore tooth. My daughter had just disowned me, accused me of chasing money, and walked out of my life. Yet for the first time in years, I felt free. Yes, I said, surprised by the steadiness of my own voice. I think I am. 6 months later, I stood in the same sunlit conservatory where Terry and I had first admitted our past. Everything had changed. Morning light caught the simple gold band on my left hand, not the diamond Terry once promised in youth, but a ring chosen by the people we'd become, not the dreamers we once were. We'd married quietly 3 weeks earlier, with only Patricia and Terry's lawyer as witnesses. No grand church, no crowd, Just two people who had found their way back to each other and promised to spend whatever time remained together. "Mrs. Hawthorne," Patricia said briskly as she entered, though a small smile betrayed her. "There's someone at the door asking for you." My heart tightened. I'd been expecting this visit ever since the wedding notice appeared in the local paper. "Who is it?" I asked, already knowing. "Your daughter, ma'am." "She seems upset." Terry looked up from the foundation reports on his desk as I entered. He immediately read the tension in my face. "She's here," I said simply. "Do you want me to handle it?" "No," I answered. "She's my daughter." "This is my conversation, but I'd like you there." "Of course." We found Harlow perched on the edge of a velvet settee, ready to bolt. She lost weight, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. For a moment, my maternal instincts ached for her. "Harlow," I said evenly. "Mom." Her arms crossed over her chest. "Congratulations on your marriage." I heard it was lovely. "It was," I replied. "Simple but perfect." Her eyes flicked to our joined hands and the matching gold bands. "You actually did it. You married him." "I did," I said firmly. "Every vow, every promise, richer or poorer, sickness and health." She let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "I thought you'd come home once the novelty wore off." "But you didn't. This is my home now," I said quietly. "With him." "With a man you barely know anymore," she countered. "I know him better than you think," I answered. "And I know myself better than I did 6 months ago." Silence stretched between us. At last Harlow looked down at the Persian rug, then back up with eyes bright from unshed tears. "I've been thinking about what you said, about Dad, first loves, how some things never really end." She drew a shaky breath. "I went through Dad's papers after you left. I found letters, love letters, to someone named Jennifer, dated 2 years before he died." The words struck like a physical blow. Dante, my steady, faithful Dante, had been writing love letters to another woman while I nursed him through his final illness. I felt the room tilt, the air thicken. My late husband, the man I had mourned so deeply, had carried a secret I never imagined. Terry's hand found mine, warm and solid. Whatever came next, grief, questions, forgiveness, I knew I would not face it alone. Terry's hand tightened around mine, steady and warm. "I'm sorry," Harlow said quietly. "I know it hurts, but I thought you should know. Maybe your marriage wasn't as perfect as I believed." I closed my eyes, letting the words settle. It should have shattered me. It should have rewritten everything I thought I knew about my life with Dante. Instead, I felt something unexpected, relief. "Thank you for telling me," I said at last. Harlow blinked, surprised. "You're not angry?" "I'm sad. Disappointed, but not angry." I searched for the right words. "Your father was a good man who made poor choices. That doesn't erase the good years we shared, but it does give me perspective." "What kind of perspective?" she asked. "That I don't have to give my entire life to his memory. I don't have to feel guilty for finding happiness again." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I was so jealous of you, Mom. So angry that you could just move on. I thought you'd forgotten Dad." "I didn't forget him," I said softly. "I never will." But I couldn't stay frozen in grief forever. Her voice cracked. "And I made it worse by throwing you out. I was so hurt, so angry about the affair. I blamed you for not keeping him faithful, and then I blamed you for needing support." Suddenly it all made sense. Her coldness after the funeral, the ultimatum, the need to control. Harlow hadn't been protecting herself from my grief. She'd been drowning in her own. "Oh, sweetheart." I moved to sit beside her on the settee. "You should have told me." "How could I?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "How could I tell you that your perfect husband was unfaithful?" "It wasn't all a lie," I said gently. "The early years were real. The love was real, even if it changed. And you," I touched her hand, "you were real. The best part of that marriage." She leaned against me, and for the first time in months, she felt like my daughter again. "I've been so awful to you," she murmured. "You've been hurting. That's different. Can you forgive me?" I looked across the room. Terry watched us with quiet understanding and gave a small nod. "I forgive you," I said, "but things can't go back to the way they were. I'm not the same woman I was 6 months ago, and neither are you." Harlow pulled back to meet my eyes. "What does that mean?" "It means that if you want to be part of my life, You need to accept my choices. All of them. My marriage, my husband, my right to be happy. And if you can't, then we'll love each other from a distance. I won't let anyone, not even you, make me ashamed of the life I'm building." She stayed silent, thinking. Then she turned to Terry. "I owe you an apology too," she said. "I said terrible things about you, about your relationship with my mom. I was wrong." "Grief makes us all say things we don't mean," Terry replied gently. "Do you really love her?" Harlow asked. "With everything I have," he said without hesitation. "I've loved her for 48 years. Finding her again is the greatest gift of my life." Harlow looked between us, seeing the quiet certainty in his eyes and the way my hand sought his without thought. Slowly, something in her expression softened. "I can see it," she said, wonder flickering through the tears. "The way you look at each other," Harlow said softly. "It's like you're the only two people in the world." "Sometimes it feels that way," I admitted. She was quiet for a long moment. "Are you happy, Mom? Really, truly happy?" I thought of quiet mornings in the conservatory, of Terry bringing me wildflowers from the garden because he remembered they were my favorite, of drifting to sleep beside him each night with a peace I'd never known. "Yes," I said, "I'm happy." Harlow nodded, then stood. "Then I need to learn to be happy for you. I want to try. I want to be part of your life, if you'll let me. I want to know Terry as your husband, not just your employer. And I want to make up for the months I wasted being angry." I rose and hugged her, really hugged her for the first time since Dante's funeral. "I'd like that very much." She glanced around the elegant living room, then back at me. "This is really your home now." "It is. And you're really Mrs. Hawthorne?" "I am." A genuine smile, the first I'd seen from her in over a year, spread across her face. "It'll take some getting used to, but Mom, you deserve this. You deserve to be loved and cherished, even spoiled a little. I'm sorry it took me so long to see that." After Harlow left, promising to call soon and bring her children to meet their new step-grandfather, Terry and I sat in the garden, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and rose. "Do you think she means it?" I asked. "She's her mother's daughter," Terry said with a smile. "That means she's stronger and more forgiving than she realizes." The last of the tension melted from my shoulders. For the first time in years, everything felt whole. "Thank you," I whispered, "for fighting for us. For never giving up when it got complicated." Terry lifted my hand and kissed it. "Thank you for taking a chance on an old love and an older man. For seeing past the wheelchair and the walls I built around my heart. We're quite a pair," I said, laughing softly. "Two people in their 70s starting over like teenagers. The best kind of pair," he replied. "The kind that knows how precious love really is and never takes it for granted." As the stars emerged one by one, I thought of the road that had brought me here, losing Dante, the humiliation of being cast out, the fear of starting over with nothing but memories and pride. Sometimes you have to lose everything to discover what you were searching for all along. And sometimes the love you thought was lost forever has simply been waiting for you to come home. Now I'm curious about you, the listener. If you were in my place, what would you have done? Have you ever found a second chance when you least expected it? Share your thoughts and the city you're watching from in the comments below. And on the final screen, you'll find 2 more favorite stories from this channel that just might surprise you. Thank you for watching.